Hey, well, I appreciate you guys coming out today. This is my first time out to this event, so I'm pretty impressed with the diverse amount of people in here, and so yeah, happy to be here. I almost started off with a grand assault, walked through the back, and almost knocked over every single glass that was on that back table, so I was kind of potentially off to a tragic start. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Kevin was saying, I'm Matt Trygar. I'm with Flagship Visuals. We're a small video agency here in Hampton Roads, and located down at the oceanfront, and we've been doing video production. Our company's 5 years young. I've been in it for probably 15 years, back in the days of tape and taping over tapes because you didn't have money to buy new tapes. Stealing your parents' VHS camera, 8mm camera, and then rolling out to make skate videos. That was how we got into it. Again, many moons ago, but yeah, so I figured, while I'm here, I might as well just go ahead and just kind of, introduce kind of who I am and kind of personalize it a little bit. This is my family. They're pretty amazing. In February, I will be married for 10 years, so I'm really stoked about that. It's been a dream for sure. These are our two boys. Definitely changed my world. Do I have anybody who has young kids in here? Yeah, anyone in the middle of having young kids, about 3 and 5-ish? Kind of, you're fully in the throes of it? Okay, cool. Those of you who have gone through it know probably where we're at with stuff. But this is Dean. He's 6 years old. First of all, he's definitely like his mom. Super, super sweet. Very adventurous, but also very kind-hearted. And currently, because he's in that 5, 6, 7 year range, I'm like his hero right now, so I'm stoked about that. I know that tide will change at some point, but for now, I'm living that up. So he's into what I'm into. He's always wanting to wrestle, but he's a sweet kid that definitely takes after his mom. Now Knox is my 3-year-old. And does anybody have their second kid who's maybe just a touch different than maybe their first kid? So yeah, I got a big one up in the back. So Knox is, he walks to the beat of his own drum. And Knox is definitely our wild child. He, in no way, shape, or form listens very well. And that's something that we're working on. That's okay. And we give him grace on that end of stuff. But he's in this zone right now where when he gets real excited, he just bites stuff, people, things, anything. And it's very uncontrollable. We've had multiple discussions with him, and one of the most recent ones was the other day I came in, and you would think that by now I'd be kind of used to it and can defend myself, but that wasn't the case the other day. I was still kind of in work mode, walking in the door, wasn't ready to be on put the dad hat on and especially be able to defend myself from him. But came in the door, he's stoked to see me. He comes running, gives me a big hug, and as he's hugging me, he just decides to go ahead and just latch on to the inside of my knee. But he didn't go for one of those large bites. He went for the smallest amount of pinching needles. So I screamed at an octave, I don't think dogs could even hear. And that's basically who Knox is. We sat him down. We had a very somber discussion with him. He knew he was sulking. He knew he had done something wrong. Again, because we've had this discussion with him many times. But as we sat him down, I let Heather kind of take the lead because I was very much in pain and was trying not to cry, holding back tears. But Heather sat him down and was very serious with him. Now Knox, we don't bite in our house. We're not welcome to bite in our house. You just bit Dad, and he's very, very much in pain. So is there anything you'd like to say to Dad? And he looked up very, very slowly and goes, "Gotcha," and then rolls out. And which brings me to my point of what I think that we are all facing as marketers. Obviously, you guys know this, is that we're fighting for people's attention. We're fighting for people to be able to listen and then follow, hopefully, the directions that we're trying to give them. Whether you're trying to sell a product, whether you're trying to bring awareness, whether you're trying to tell someone's story, you're trying to build your personal brand, we're always fighting for someone's attention. With that challenge to grab someone's attention, one of the big things that we found, obviously, if you've ever heard of the internet, World Wide Web, it is one of these things that continues to grow. It continues to more people continue to be brought online. Again, I'm speaking to the choir right now about this, but this is a problem. This is a challenge for all of us. How do we get people's attention? How do we grab people's attention, keep their attention? How are we able to really harness what we're trying to do? And again, a couple stats on how things are kind of growing, how things are kind of moving. Again, social video generates 1,200% more shares than text and images combined. Mobile video consumption rises 100% every single year. I mean, some of these stats are pretty crazy. And not only that, more and more people are being brought online. I know Google's doing some crazy stuff, sending balloons out and bringing more people in very remote places online. And all this does is it makes it more and more of a crowded room. It makes the noise level of everyone talking raise up higher and higher. And so how do we as marketers, how do we as people that are trying to get people's attention, how do we stand out from that crowd? How are we able to cut through the noise? How are we able to really get people's attention and move them? I really boiled it down to one thing, and that's stories. Stories is something that obviously is not a new thing. It's been around for centuries and centuries. I mean, paintings on the wall and from fables from times ago, Bible stories, you name it. I mean, stories have been a part of how things kind of progress, how it's passed on to the next generation forever. So this is nothing new. But I think sometimes we can kind of get to a place where we forget about story and we can kind of leave that out a little bit and leave that kind of behind, and we kind of get caught up in, all right, what's the next new thing? And sometimes we just need to just get back to the basics of storytelling. And so we as humans are really naturally wired to find story in everything. There was a study that was done, and I'll play this video while I talk about this, but this experiment was done a while back, and no audio, nothing with it, and out of 200 people, about 200 people, 198 or 97 people watched this video, and they saw the story that was being told. Saw the story that was being told with triangles and circles, and only about 3 people only saw triangles and circles and couldn't follow the story and couldn't figure it out and couldn't really see past that. But the point being is that I think we are all wired naturally to follow story, to find story and stuff, to be able to really be able to search out where the story is. And so for us, I think that's something to really keep in mind. So the point of all this is that good stories draw you in. They take you deeper. They strengthen the bond. Visual storytelling is the most powerful form of storytelling. Visual storytelling, obviously there's written form, there's audio, and then there's the visual side of things, which kind of combines all of it together. And so the cool thing about that is that we're able to leverage that. We're able to take every single dynamic of written audio and combine it in. And visually speaking, that is one of the most powerful senses that we have, other than smell. I'm looking forward to the day when we're able to harness smell. I think back when I was a kid, 7-Eleven and they had something going on where you put in 3D goggles and then you had some scratch and sniff stuff. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but they tapped into, and you would watch the show and then you would scratch and sniff as you kind of went. So they tapped into that 4th or 5th sense. So I'm looking forward to when we can wrap all of those in together. But for now, obviously I'm probably pretty biased, but visual storytelling I feel like is by far the most powerful storytelling that is available to us today. And the good news for us is that obviously with the internet growing, it presents a challenge for us to stand out, but it also presents a lot of opportunities. 10 years ago, we weren't able to put video online for anyone to watch on their phone. So again, talking to the choir, you guys all know this stuff, but one thing that kind of caught my eye, and going back to how stories really move people and why they are so important for us, is I actually went to a Bruce Springsteen concert. Anyone love The Boss? Anyone Springsteen? Okay. I actually went to one of his concerts at the amphitheater years ago with my dad, and it was a great experience, awesome. But he just recently came out with a Netflix special. I'm not sure if you guys have caught it, but I was captivated by watching this Netflix special. It was unbelievable. If you haven't had the chance to watch it, please watch a little bit of it, even if you're not a Springsteen fan. The stories that he tells prior to every single song that he plays, it just completely brings you into where he is. It completely matches you up. It bonds you to what the song's about. It means so much more. Why? Because he brought stories into it. So visual storytelling. Again, another person that really harnessed story, Lady Gaga. I mean, I'm not a big Lady Gaga fan. I don't know if anybody else in here is, but to me, hearing Springsteen give backstory about stuff and him bring those stories to life, I connected and I bonded with what he was singing about. The songs made so much more sense to me. Lady Gaga kind of did the same thing as well. Obviously, her newest movie, and I don't know if it's her only movie, but A Star Is Born was a very powerful cinematic movie. And during her acceptance speech, that was when she had thrown out a bunch of times alluding to her struggle with depression and her struggle with mental illness and how she's overcome that, getting to this point. And it was a very moving, very emotional story that she was telling. And to me, then when I read this, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like, man, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm a big Lady Gaga fan now. I've seen, and the reason why that happened wasn't because of, I loved, the Poker Face song or whatever, or wasn't, or was super enthralled with her artsy dress and how she was so mysterious when she first came out. You could never see her face for so long. It wasn't anything having to do with that. It was her story of her overcoming something. And it was a story that she told as once she got to that place and people that doubted her and people that were pushing her aside, people that were saying that she couldn't make it, how she had overcome that. And so to me, that was something that stood out, where stories that these people were telling really takes things to another level. I recently went out to the Pungo Airfield. I don't know if you guys have ever been out to the Pungo Airfield Museum. I walked around this place. They had really cool planes, perused the place, went through, looked at a bunch of stuff, and then I came across this plane. And yeah, I mean, you can breeze in, you can breeze out, but this is not that cool of a plane. It's kind of like a grocery getter. Nothing great, nothing cool about it. But once I started to see the story and read the story about it, I started really kind of fall in love with this entire museum. It became like, oh my gosh, I could spend hours here learning about all the stories of this. But basically what this plane did was it attached to the bottom of blimps. And the story behind that is the whole reason, this is like Indiana Jones. You guys remember the scene of Indiana Jones and they take out the escape plane? The whole reason that plane was even attached is because these blimps were actually taking off from Elizabeth City and they were rolling all the way out. This is during World War II, obviously, and when this one time they saw a U-boat, their radio, they were so far out they couldn't get the radio signal to get back to land. And this U-boat ended up sinking a bunch of ships in the area because the radio signal wouldn't reach all the way back. So they decided to attach this grocery getter plane to the bottom of a blimp. Ever since then, they could go out as far as they wanted to, and then this plane would then drop off, be a hop, skip, and a jump to daisy chain the radio signals back to land, back to Elizabeth City, just south of here. And I just thought that was just such an amazing story. This very, very average, very normal plane now turned into a very powerful story and a very intricate part. Our motto at Flagship is, we want to, be visual storytellers and tell stories that move people to action. So for us, how do we capture people and how do we leverage video? One, we always like to start with a goal. We will always try to start with what's the goal here. And I think for you guys, ask yourself that question. I mean, again, you guys are marketers. You guys know this stuff. I mean, starting with the goal, what you want to accomplish, then moving into, defining your audience, who are you talking to, and being as specific as possible. Could be as specific as Caucasian, middle-aged, 35-year-old man with 2 kids struggling to stay alive from his youngest, to something more broad, millennial, East Coast, who wants to vacation. That's who I'm going to speak to. But that's the sandbox that we will draw and we'll play in. From there, there's a framework that we always stick to. And if you guys are familiar with StoryBrand, we're huge StoryBrand people, and we stick to this framework. And I felt like today, obviously, there's a ton of stuff that I could go into in terms of how to light a scene and how to have mood, how to have music play into it, so on and so forth. Probably not enough time to get into all that. So I really just wanted to make sure I dove down into the most important part, which is story. I've seen a lot of movies. I'm sure you guys have as well. And I never walk away from a movie most of the time going, oh my gosh, gorgeous, looks like a gorgeous movie. Or, wow, that didn't really look that great. I always walk away from a movie going, that was a great story. And that's what I determine 90% of when I see a movie, a blockbuster movie, that's what I determine it off of, is how good the story was. Did it move me? Was it a powerful story of overcoming something? Did it actually do something emotionally? And that's really what it's all about. And so for us, I wanted to go through just the building blocks, the framework on how a story can and should. These are principles that have been in Hollywood forever, but I think that you guys can apply them to if you're doing a vlog, if you're looking to make your own commercial, or move your brand forward, in the video world. These are the principles that will give you that framework to be creative within, but it really helps us, particularly when we take on a project that can sometimes be overwhelming and we're not really sure. We start with the goals, and then we take it right into who our audience is, and then from there, right into our framework. So the first thing is this. We establish the character, aka the hero. The hero, obviously, is going to be the person who is going to be taken on this journey. He's going to be the person that is going to want something. He's going to be the main person in this whole thing who's going to be the glue kind of throughout the entire process. The hero is going to encounter a problem. He's going to come up against something that's going to shake his normal world. He's going to run up against something that challenges what the norm is. At that point, he doesn't have the answer, so a trusted guide then comes in at that point. Trusted guide who's going to help him have a plan, make a plan to be able to overcome the problem that's ahead of him, that he's facing. From there, that plan is then going to call him to action. So moving from the hero, now has a problem, meets a guide, now has a plan, and then moves all the way into action from there. Moving into action, obviously the end result is going to be either success or it's going to be failure. One or the other is going to take place. And that's the basic framework of storytelling. So when you're sitting down to think of like, how am I going to build a commercial campaign? How am I going to build a video for my clients? This is a 6, 7 step process that has been tried and true. You can see it in every type of movie. You can see it all throughout. This is something that really is not inventing the wheel. It's very, very basic, but almost every single story that you see on TV or in Hollywood, it's going to stick to these principles. The character throughout the entire thing is going to have a transformation. He's going to transform into something new, a new version of himself. So again, to make it very, very basic, the hero, he wants something. He runs up against a problem. From there, he's going to meet a guide, a trusted guide, who's then going to give him a plan. That plan is going to push him into taking action, and then from there, the stakes are going to be there. He's either going to win, he's going to lose, he's going to succeed, he's going to fail, but the stakes are there. If there's no stakes, if there's nothing at stake, nothing to lose, nothing to gain, then the story is going to eventually just kind of be irrelevant. It's going to be pretty weak story. So keeping all of these things in mind, as you guys kind of build your story, as you guys kind of talk about your brand, as you build your personal brand or write a book or are trying to get more traction, these are the 7 steps to really kind of framework. And the cool thing about this is that there's so many different ways to be creative within these 7 steps. So I have a couple examples. Karate Kid. Any fans of Karate Kid in here? So we're going to go through Karate Kid. Who do you guys think Karate Kid is in this story? Yes, Daniel LaRusso, yes. But he is the hero in this story. Daniel LaRusso from, I believe, Jersey in the beginning of the story. Can anyone confirm or deny that he's from Jersey, moving to the West Coast, California? I think it is Jersey, right? Or Philly. I don't want to get that mixed up. He runs into a problem when he gets out there. He runs into Johnny from Cobra Kai. The puberty voice every time he punches. Yeah, right? Johnny and the goons from Cobra Kai gym don't want him to fit in. They don't like him. He's an East Coast kid trying to fit in on the West Coast. The whole soccer scene on the beach, dirt bikes. I mean, you get it, right? He has a problem. Then he meets none other than Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi, the trusted guide in this entire movie. Mr. Miyagi then gives him a plan. Does anyone know what that plan might be? Wax on, wax off. That's right. Wax on, wax off for Mr. Miyagi is the trusted plan. And paint the fence and sand the floor. Cannot forget those as well. Mr. Miyagi then calls him to action. The tournament. The tournament is either Daniel takes it. He was basically forced into it by Johnny and the Cobra Kai. Okay, so he either has to go into the tournament, and he's either going to win and gain their respect, or he's going to lose, and he's going to continue to get bullied. He's going to continue to be the outcast kid from the East Coast. And after he's called to action, from there, he gets his desired results. He wins the trophy, and at the end of it, Mr. Miyagi gives him the head nod. Obviously, he has the crane kick was the moment. We all know that. But from there, Johnny shows mad respect and says, "You're all right, LaRusso. You're all right." And still to this day, we wonder how small Daniel LaRusso, skinny, scrawny, can beat up Johnny. But it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The point is that there's a hero. This framework can be seen throughout every movie that you guys watch. One of my most favorite movies is Forrest Gump. Again, it can get very complicated, but you can start to pick some of these movies apart and go, okay, cool. Like in about 31 minutes, something's going to happen to this guy. He's going to come up with a plan. Something's going to present themselves. You can start to pick it apart. So if you think about your favorite shows, you think about your favorite movies, that's the case. Now, what does this look like for maybe some of us in this room? Obviously, a lot of us, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't, maybe somebody in here is shooting feature-length films like Karate Kid or Point Break, which I don't know if we want to even try out the framework on Point Break real quick, but Point Break, obviously you got Johnny Utah, okay, he's the hero, Utah. He runs up, who would be Johnny Utah's problem that he runs up? He's an FBI agent. He's basically trying to make it as an FBI agent. He wants to succeed as an FBI agent. He's a rookie. The problem is that there's bank robbers. That's the problem that he encounters, bank robbers. And the urgency with the bank robbers is that they're going to leave soon. Their track record is shown. They hit a bunch of banks and then they vanish. Who does Utah meet? None other than Gary Busey. The tried, the true Gary Busey. The steadfast, level-headed, both in real life and in the movie. And Busey has been an FBI agent for years. He's been around the block. He's seen it all. And his theory is that they are surfers. They're surfers that follow the waves. And at the end of the day, that's Busey's theory. He gives Utah a plan. That plan is to become a surfer and infiltrate into the surf community. Okay? Utah catches his first wave, sir. It's not very well received by his lieutenant, but still goes for it. I'm completely just going on. I'm trying to remember this movie right now. I'm slightly regretting even bringing this up because I'm starting to get confused. So where was I at? I was at that he has a plan. He's infiltrating. From the plan that was given to him, where do we go to from there? Anyone know what the next stage in that 7 process would be? Anyone want to call it out? Falls in love with a girl, right? Yes. Where would be, so hero, problem, meets a guide, gets a plan. What's the next step? Anyone know? Anyone there? Call to action. Call to action, going to the surf community. He goes in there. They start to bring him in real deep. Skydiving, night surf sessions, football on the beach. He gets deep into that community. Before you know it, he's starting to do illegal things. Before you know it, he's robbing banks with them. He's been called to action. At the end of it, his desired result, he's now faced with, do I save this girl or do I capture these bank robbers? In the end, he chooses to save the girl, but you think it's over, and they flip it out. Hopefully nobody's seen this movie. If not, you should have by now. It's like 96, guys. Come on. At the end, he ends up finding none other than Patrick Swayze on the beach, Bell's Beach, in the middle of what? The 50-year storm. That's right. Finds him on the beach, 50-year storm. He will be there. It came out of Antarctica, and there he is. He's now won the girl, got his desired result. He's now captured the lead bank robber, Bodie, Patrick Swayze, the Sways, and all things are good, all things are true. He's now moved on. So that's another movie example of how this framework kind of plays out. Now, what does it look like more in short form? I'm sure you guys are probably doing a lot more short form stuff. How do we tell a story like that into 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 15, 8, 6? How do we do it in such a short amount of time? That's where the challenge and creativity actually comes in. And that's where us as marketers, us as people who are in this, have to get super, super creative. It's very, very tempting for us to put our own company as the hero. We're not. Our customers are the hero. The people that we're trying to speak to are the heroes. I'll leave you guys with one question on how are you guys going to try to tell better stories to help change your world, move people to action, and let's go out there and let's tell better stories using our framework, being creative within it. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Thank you, guys.